Hi, I'm Dr. Kirsten Bible, and I'm one of the candidates for the Project One Training Coordinator position with the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. As part of the interview process, I'm going to give a short training presentation that highlights my facilitation style. It also offers insights into how I might use software to create some learning content. Currently, I teach a class in an online private school. The school is unique in that teachers teach 2 to 4 of the classes live per week using Adobe Connect. Today I'm going to demonstrate the poll tool, which you can use for a class activity. It allows your students to be more involved in the content, gives you a chance to assess how they're progressing. Now, this presentation assumes a basic level of skill using Adobe Connect, as if I were training a new teacher who can do a simple setup but needs to find some new tools to engage their students. I always encourage interaction wherever possible because it's a key part of active learning. Creating activities helps to break up the material and allows me to see where they're struggling. Now, if you haven't used Adobe Connect before, it is similar to Blackboard, Collaborate Ultra, but I found it's really more versatile tool in an online classroom, and it gives a facilitator a lot of options in how the classroom is set up. In fact, it allows you to set up multiple classrooms at one time. So right now I've got several classrooms set up, so we're going to dive into Adobe Connect so I can share this really exciting tool with you. So here we are in my online classroom. In fact, this particular classroom setup called Welcome was for the very first class of the year. Right now we're studying the Renaissance in music history, so I'm just going to click on Renaissance and you see a bit of a different setup. You can also see that it takes a little bit of time to switch from one class to another, so even though it's really great that you can switch back and forth, don't expect it to be really instantaneous. Okay, so this is the last class we'll be working on in the Renaissance, and if we have some extra time at the end of the class, I've decided to do some practice listening with them to help them study for their upcoming quiz. To do this, I'm going to combine PowerPoint and the poll tool in Adobe Connect. I created the PowerPoint previously, and I purposely designed it for this activity. You can see that I set it up with the first slide containing the actual test clip, and then the next slide showing the title of the piece. As Vesta was. I originally had imported all of the listening clips into Adobe Connect as separate pods, but they had retained their titles, which means the students could see it. It made testing a little bit difficult, so I decided to use the PowerPoint instead. It's pretty easy to drag and drop the sound files into the PowerPoint file and quickly set this up. It probably took me about 1 minute per file, not long at all. So now it's time to import the PowerPoint into Adobe Connect. To do that, I'm going to select pods and then share, and I'll use an empty pod rather than create a new one. Yes, I've created at least 100 pods at this point in the school year. Once the pod's open, I'll click on the caret next to Share My Screen to see my options. Then I'll select Share Document and browse my computer so that I can import the file to Connect. We're going to use the magic of software here to speed this up. It can actually take a while to upload files to Adobe Connect, so always give yourself plenty of time to set up your classroom. I found myself really scrambling on days that I didn't prepare in advance, so don't fall into that trap. All right, once that's loaded, I'll make sure it's the size that I want. In this case it is, and then I'll tuck it into the bottom corner. I tend to put this just down on the side in the corner like that because it doesn't need to be really big. I'm just going to click on it to play the music. The second thing I need is the Renaissance Practicing Listening poll I created earlier in Adobe Connect. To find this, I'll click on Pods again, scroll down to Poll, and then select Renaissance Practice Listening. It doesn't actually need to be this big here, so I'm going to resize it down a little bit. So setting up polls are actually really simple. I set this one up in about 5 minutes. I simply selected Add New Poll, typed in one question at the top, which is, hey, identify this music. And then I listed each title as one of the possible answers. Once I was done, I named it, and now you can see it's ready to launch. I can then hide the poll and go back later to reload it. So here it's hidden, and then I go back up into polls, scroll down, find it, select it, and it pops back open again. So I'm going to call out the way I've set this poll up. You can see it's not an opinion poll. Rather, I'm using the poll tool to create a reusable multiple choice option where I can immediately see how the students are responding. This is a really easy way to practice the listening clips in a music class, and I use it frequently. So the final step to get everything ready to use the listening poll in class is to get the PowerPoint set up to play the listening clips. So if I simply click on the audio icon to play the clip, it seems to work okay at first. The clip plays, and then you click on the arrows at the bottom to advance it. As vast a wasp, that was Unfortunately, it has a flaw. You can't pause the music clip. It will just keep replaying every time you click on it trying to pause it. Yes, that's very annoying. So, what to do? Sometimes I'm going to want to just pause the music to go over some key points with my class. I really need more control over how the PowerPoint works. To get that control, I'm going to click on this caret up here in the top right corner and then select Show Presentation Play Bar. This will give me a set of traditional player controls to play the clips and pause as needed. As vast a wasp, that was One thing to remember is that it will automatically advance the slides, so be ready with the pause button to give you time to discuss each piece with your class. Now I've got the PowerPoint set up, so I can open the poll and select whether or not I want to broadcast the answers. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So you can see here how easy it is to select an answer, and right now it shows 100% have selected this answer since I'm the only person logged in. After the class tries to identify each listening clip in the poll, I will quickly discuss their answers and then clear the answers out. Okay, you've seen the setup. Now let's take a super quick peek at my class and see how this plays out. Let's see what you notice about how I use the tool in an actual live class. All right, let's go on to the next one. Let me clear that out. All right, here we go. Next example. That's a pretty easy one, very, very distinctive. If you look at the entire list, how many lute songs do you see? How many lute songs do you see? Flow My Tears is the only lute song that I see. Kemp's Jig is a lute solo, right? So there's literally one song on here that is only lute. Okay, going back through this, you probably noticed that I leave the chat box open during practice listening, which seems a little counterintuitive. They're chatting while they're listening to music, but in an online class, the online chatter back and forth doesn't automatically disrupt the class, although there are times when I have to get them back on topic. This is really a great advantage in a music class especially because it allows my students to comment on the music while it is playing without actually disrupting the class. I use this throughout the class every time I listen to a piece of music, as well as during the polls. As we work through each music clip, you probably noticed that I watched how they're responding to get an idea of how they're absorbing the material, which is a great instant formative assessment for me. Happily, on this question, you saw that they all got it right. And of course, I also take the time between the music clips to remind them of certain key points, such as this piece is a lute song versus a lute solo, and I give them some study tips. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to use this tool in an unusual way. As I work on designing new learning experiences, I like to explore the technology and make it work for me, sometimes in ways it wasn't originally intended.